My project today has not been to attend to the multitude of our local processes. I don't know what y'all are doing. I don't know why y'all need to do it. Rather, our aim here has been to proclaim our unity by way of identifying our operational concerns, those that enable us to see beyond our applied lessons to the learning goals, our motives, that fit acts to scenes, and scenes to acts. But if this is how we can approach our work, how can you approach your work? What will guide you through your specific concerns? And for that I offer this mantra. I am a writing teacher, I teach writers. So finally for now, accept that the technologies and the infrastructures of creating and sharing audiovisual writing are in constant and rapid flux, because they are. From semester to semester, it may be nearly impossible to keep up with all of these changes, believe me. Resist the urge to try to be responsible for all of the content that your students are going to need to access. Even as you may assign a handbook in your class to help your students address writing issues that emerge for each student, direct your students to search the internet for blogs and video tutorials, for user manuals, for audio-visual equipment and software that they're going to be using. My students regularly Google their way to answers about lighting and camera operations and about learning how to perform special effects and post-production fixes in specific editing software and specific operating systems. For example, why would I teach how to burn out the video resolution to everybody in class when that's not necessarily what they're going to need? However, when they start to do the homage for the Paranormal Activity and they see that they need to recreate that, we need to learn that. They each need to learn what they need to learn. This tells us an awful lot about the association method that we use to teach grammar as well. Directing your students to these resources is not passing the buck. Not passing the buck for learning that information yourself. It recognizes that audiovisual writers need to learn more than how to make an audiovisual project in your class. In short, they need to be able to do this stuff when they leave our classes. Their lives as audiovisual writers, in those lives, they are going to need to learn again and again how to solve software problems, hardware problems, and asking them to do so in our classes can help them develop sustainable audiovisual writing practices. So repeat after me. I am a writing teacher. I teach writing. Rock. Thank you very much. Question? Concerns? Tomatoes? Left them speechless again. What are you guys doing? Are you doing this stuff? Any movie makers out there? Yeah? Of course, Timothy. Timothy, does this resonate with your experience?
Yes, in all respects. And I'm lucky that a lot of the infrastructural concerns have been passed on to something that we have at Oakland University called the Student Technology Center. So I didn't have to go out and find money to make all that stuff happen. But these thinking about writing as a process that doesn't just involve composing with words, that involves composing with other modalities, video, image, sound, is something that I stress in my pedagogical approach with my students, who 75% of them have never worked with video editing software. And trying to build bridges between the familiar, working with words, and the unfamiliar, working with multiple modalities, is a lot of what I do with my first year writing students, with the majors who take our video composing class, that kind of stuff. So I'm always trying to make these kinds of connections and making this sort of argument for them, but also getting them to discover the bridges that will help them to bring what they already know to the table.
Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, to touch on that comment, in the tweet stream I heard or saw a really interesting comment that I think circles back to your pious and impious binary, which is, I think, a really useful thing. And that was, someone pointed out that your comment about you don't need good dancers, you just need good footage, that's something that she tries to teach in her research writing class.
Yes.
Because students, in my experience, do this. They focus on getting that one good source that's going to anchor their whole argument. And of course, that's impossible. It sends them on this spiral to find one article in the library, which is not what we want to do. But this notion of embracing the impious, you don't need a good dancer, you need good footage. And then bringing that into the writing of a research argument, that's brilliant.
In first year writing, not only that, but it's the layers. When you start breaking things into layers, you realize that you don't need to have stuff happen in sequence either. It happens way out of sequence. And that's the storyboarding thing. When you shoot homages, you start to see that you need to shoot everything with every scene that the camera's going to be looking in this way. You need to shoot all of those scenes. You don't shoot this one and then move to this one, and then come back over to this one, and then go to this one, and then try to replicate it again back over here, because that's the way it goes. You shoot it completely out of sequence, you bust it all up, you take the stuff that you need, you get rid of the shit you don't, and then you put it together the way you want it, the way writers do. You don't write it in the way, and research writing the way you read it. You write it in the way that you need it, the way your argument starts to progress, right? You start to break things up in that kind of way, and that kind of being able to start to see the chunks through the layers and all of those kinds of moves can really start to help folks understand how they start to construct the work that they do in the other types of writing. Who's scared of this stuff? Who's scared to do it? Why?
Part of it is, for where I'm at, this is not accepted because outside of the department, it's considered not to be writing. So there's the constant pushback from the professional schools and other schools that you're not really teaching them what we need them to know when they get to us.
There's a book that's coming out very soon. It has 3 chapters at the beginning that are theoretical discussions about what writing is and how it works, and what the operation of writing is, that may potentially provide us with some language to provide to those chairs, those reluctant deans, those reluctant provosts, those reluctant colleagues who potentially can start to do that. There's this book, I understand. First 3 chapters does that. The next bit does the rest of the stuff.
I'm coming from the other end at the same university, and so I teach digital media studies, and we've made videos and documentaries, and these are all freshman students, and that's kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm trying to reach then back to the writing program or the College of Liberal Arts, and trying to say that this is writing. So I'm trying to justify it coming from the other side, saying we're already doing this, and you need to acknowledge that this is a type of a form of writing. So this is really interesting for me as a way of, justifying to them that this is, this is writing. Lori, of course.
Which is funny because I'm the director of writing. So she's got me, but the problem is everybody else around us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The-
there's no pictures.
Where we came from, Donald Murray and that whole group of folks told us to teach writing as a process, not as a product. And so when we start to fetishize the product, the movie, we're not making movies, we're not movie makers. We're not making movie makers. We're not teaching the homage video. We're not teaching the documentary film. We're using these things as ways to teach the process of writing. And if we don't do that, then we probably are going to stand up to the criticism from those folks who said, what the hell are you doing? But if we do accept it along that mission, that's where we say, this is within the operation, within the verb, within the writing lives, within the kinds of decisions that writers make. And it helps us reach, potentially, students who are not already prepared to imagine a writing life in a traditional way. A lot of our students are unprepared, they're unfamiliar with the kinds of writing that we're going to ask them to do in the academy. But they're not unfamiliar with writing. They're not unfamiliar with texts. They're not unfamiliar with arrangement. They're not unfamiliar with invention. They don't lack things to say. Giving them other opportunities to consider how they can do something well and emerge as someone who's done something well can now give them the thing that Eric Lindemann tells us in Rhetoric for Writing Teachers: you use your students' texts as the texts of your class when we teach them. This participates in that. Yeah, Stephanie.
Just to build on that, Lori and Allegra, so last spring we had a first year writing conference here, and I think we're doing it again this year. Yeah, okay. And one of the, this is bad because I can't give a specific example, but Bump may remember. What I do recall is you came in, and I think it was after one of the video, we did, we presented our remix projects, which in this case was videos. And Bump came in and had seen part of the presentation of some of my students and along with colleagues, and you asked them, if you might recall, some really good questions about what they learned about writing and composing from making the videos in their first year writing class as one project amongst more traditional writing composition. And they had immediately, and it was interesting because I remember the one student, who was not one of my students, initially said, she didn't know anything about video or something like that, but then she started talking about it, and you were able to show her that she did. So I'm just thinking about something like this as a way to take back TVM with actual experiences from first year writing students being able to articulate how they learned about writing from composing video.
And especially when you're working with groups of folks, you know, you get these constellation of stars suddenly in your class. I don't know if your classes are like mine, but in the years that I've been doing this, I've noticed that there's always 3 or 5 students who are always going to be the ones who are doing really well on the writing assignments.